So guys, we are going to be recording, or not recording. We're going to be in the next 10 seconds, you'll see an episode about sizing. This is something that Lorenzo and I have spent a lot of time thinking about. It's actually a really big point of friction, whether you're selling cosmetics or whether you're not cosmetic, but clothing or other types of things as well, as you'll see in the episode. So I think you guys should you guys will find a lot of value in it. And we give a ton of ideas. So if you have any questions, write comments and let us know. But I think you'll get a lot of insights from this. Take care.
What's going on, guys? So we have a new episode today, and we're gonna be talking about a very, very, very popular challenge and issue that every single clothing, apparel, and fashion brand has. And I've had the pleasure of working with a lot of them. And every time I work with a fashion, apparel, or clothing brand, they always had a sizing issue. And by the way, this is not just a problem that is typical for this industry. Any type of like e-commerce where there's different sizes about something. For example, I was talking to somebody recently who is consulting for a business that sells dog crates, right? And in that scenario, also sizing is a big issue. And I actually want to show you some data point that shows how common from the user's perspective the sizing issue is. So what I've done here, this is a screenshot I took from a tool called Ahref, which is an SEO keywords research tool. And I literally just typed in the keyword size chart. And this is like the list, like there are over 300,000 keywords related to size chart, which completely blew my mind about the volume of how many people, how many keywords are related to this, which also means how many people are searching for this every month, right? Talking about the actual number of searches on a monthly base, Ahref estimates to be almost 6 million. But this tool is actually not very accurate. So I expect this to be like around even more, like 2-3 times more, right? Just to set the stage on how big of an issue it is across a lot of different industries. And now I have actually sorted the size chart keywords based on the volume, and I want to show you like a few example of things that people search for, right? Like bra size chart, shoe size chart, hat size chart, baby shoes size chart, shoe size conversion chart, and so on. So there's a lot of type of different searches that people make when it comes to size chart. This is just to set the stage of because the way I think about keyword research is like audience research, is like people are Googling stuff to solve a problem. So it's intel, it's data that people are struggling with size chart, right? Now the next point I have here, because I've worked with a bunch of other clothing and apparel brands, I've come across a lot of different problems when it comes to size chart, and I listed down here. I think there are 10, 11, just to make people understand how it's very difficult to say, okay, one e-commerce always has this problem, right? There's a lot of different problems that that an e-commerce can have, and that's why we can't have a cookie cutter approach when it comes to trying to fix this sizing problem, right? So I want to show a few examples of common problems I came across. So the first one is that there's no indication about size chart on the product page. So in the section where the user can select different sizes, let's say a pair of shoes, there's no indication about size chart. Like, how is that even possible? You're not helping the user there, right? The second very common problem is the size guide, the size chart is present. So the e-commerce is doing a good job at putting on the size chart on the website, but only for the product page. Now, what happens is that if, again, generally speaking, when we look at like the funnel from the homepage, to the thank you page, because it's a funnel. There's a lot of people on the top, on the home page, and then the more you go down the funnel, the less people reach to the thank you page, right? Otherwise, we would have, you know, amazing conversion rates. So what happens is that if people are searching for a product using filters on a category page, oftentimes maybe they can filter by the chart, the size chart, but there's no indication around any information about the size chart. Like, for example, what does S size mean, right? It doesn't mean anything. So there's no instruction about the size chart. This is very common on category page.
It's a good point.
Yeah, the next one is, you know, maybe the e-commerce is doing a good job at putting the size chart or any indication, any information about the size chart on the PDP, but only a small percentage of people see this. Or if it's not small, like a limited number of people see this, which is, you know, something that I know you've come across, not just for sizing, for anything else, right? It's kind of like this, I call it like the competition for real estate on any single page on an e-commerce, right? Like any single element or component on a page is competing against all the other elements around the page for the attention of the user. So, you know, a few example would be like maybe like it's hidden in the footer, or it's much lower on the page and people don't scroll it, or maybe it's like hidden under a tab or a drop down. I'm gonna stop and ask you, Rishi, have you come across those problems before?
Oh yeah, no, it totally makes sense. And the thing you said about the category page, I had not even considered before, because you're right. If it exists in the category page, there's no context. Okay, do you want small? You want to filter by small, medium, large? Well, what is your definition of small, medium, large? So I think it's a very good observation, and I had not even considered it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the next few ones are, you know, people sit. So the brand is doing a good job at making it super visible, maybe like, you know, upper on the page, maybe like above the fold and so on. But when they click on it, it's not useful and it's not clear how to use it, right? So it's kind of like, well, it's there, but it's not helping me make a decision. Then the next one is, again, it's on the PDP, but what happens is that, imagine, like, especially on mobile, right? Like we all talk about all the time, you and I, on how the traffic breakdown with every single client that we work with, or most of the clients that we work with, is like 80% mobile and 20% desktop, right?
Yeah.
And imagine because you're mobile, oftentimes you're on the move, right? So imagine you're at the DMV and you're checking out in line because you're waiting. You're checking out a nice pair of old birds or any type of shoes on Zappos. And now, you know, they're asking you to measure yourself. Maybe in the shoes is not a good example. Let's say a t-shirt, right? They give you some tips about measurement. Well, I'm at the freaking DMV. I can't measure myself, right? Or maybe I'm even at home, but I don't have the how do you call the thing, the tool that you use for measurements?
Measurement tape.
Yeah, measurement tape. Maybe I don't own it, right? So no indication how to measure it either is also very common. The other few ones, and one thing I want to mention, Rishi, I'm listing down all these problems because I want to basically give some examples of things that people might have not thought about what type of sizing problems they might have. I was talking to a very smart and very savvy marketer the other day, and you know, he's not doing CRO, he's doing other stuff, meaning like, you know, media buy and PPC. And he's like, yeah, you know, I'm working on this fashion brand. And I was like, oh, can you give me some advice on, you know, what I can do to improve things? And I was like, well, first of all, it's, you know, a lot of the advice would come from like research, but because it's a fashion brand and a clothing brand, I already know that you have a sizing issue, right? No matter what, I already know that. And it's like, oh wow, like honestly, I've never thought about. I thought that maybe like people, you know, they don't like the actual physical product, which okay, yeah, sure, maybe like you go on a product page and you don't like the t-shirt or the pair of pants and blah blah. But he was like, I've never thought about sizing. I was like, yeah, that's one of the biggest issues that people have online versus the offline experience. And if you think about it, Rishi, when you go to an offline store to buy any type of clothes, what's the first thing you do? You look at the product. Oh, nice, I like it. What's the second thing that you do?
Size, yeah.
Yeah, you go and try it on, right?
Well, there's so much you can actually unpack here as well. I mean, when I think about conversions, right, we are always thinking in terms of like the biggest conversion lever. So we're thinking in terms of like we want to, the way we think about conversions is we think about it in terms of the motivation level of the buyer. So the buyer that has the highest motivation level is actually my most valuable customer, because I don't want to break their conversion because they need very little convincing to buy. So if you think about it from that perspective, the people that are using a sizing chart actually have very high motivation level, because they've already come to your product page. They've determined that your style is nice. They've determined that every other attribute is thing, and the sizing is the final frontier for them. So I think that from that perspective, in terms, they just need a smaller, like, if someone doesn't come to your product page and they eject your exit from your product page in 10 seconds, it's very hard to understand like why they left and what we can do to fix it, right? If they say that I don't like your design, what am I going to do as a brand? Just come up with new designs? No, it doesn't make any sense. But if they left for the sizing chart, that means all the other signals aligned, and that was the one thing. So that's one important thing. The other thing I'll say is this: for a lot of brands that are focused on customer lifetime value, sizing is the first step in driving customer lifetime value, because once you've kind of overcome that hurdle with them, repeat purchases are much easier. They won't be worried about sizes anymore, because now they know what they buy. My wife always does this, like, oh, I buy medium from Talbot's, so every time she goes to Talbot's, she just buys the damn medium. But a medium in another brand is a whole different ballgame for her, right? And then the final thing I'll say is that the reason why you should focus on sizing is because I think that it's a problem that very few retailers have actually solved very well, which means it's actually a moat for you, which means that if you converted a customer with your sizing thing and they bought once, when they're buying their next purchase, even if they were to go to a Nike, because the sizing chart is not clearly defined for them, they'll be like, I like what Nike's selling, but I'm going to go back to this brand because at least I know their sizing, right? And so you would have got a sale because you saw that sizing piece anyway.
Yeah, I know, totally. Especially if the return policy for that brand sucks, right? Or it's like a pain in the ass to return a product. That's even like a higher risk that the user has to take in order to purchase. Now, the next one, I want to give a big shout out to Paul Randall, who is a conversion strategist at Spiro. He actually talked to me about this problem that he had when he was working at Clark's, the shoe company. He said something that I've never thought about, and he said that sometimes it's the size chart, or there's also like apps that help you pick the right fit and the right size. So even if that's helpful, what he's experienced is that sometimes the user is still skeptical and not confident that they have the app, for example, has recommended the right size. So even if the brand is doing a good job at trying to fix the sizing issue, if the user is still not confident about the suggestion that is being given, it's still going to be a problem, which I thought it was very interesting. I've never thought about that. It's like, oh, because now they're solving that problem, like the user still might not trust the app to solve that problem. The other ones are, obviously, if you're in fashion, you probably, and you haven't solved the sizing issue, you probably have very high return rates and very high refund rates and cost, obviously, which, from a margins perspective, this is like super bad. I mean, not every brand is Zappos that they have free shipping and free return, and they can handle that, and they can afford to do that, right? Most brands are running a need to run a profitable business, and obviously return rates have a huge impact on the bottom line. Now, the next one is this is an interesting, mainly not for actually for DTC as well, but mainly for like very large e-commerce, or at least e-commerce brands that have a lot of different type of type of products. So for example, like you sell t-shirts, you sell sweaters, you sell pants, you sell shoes and stuff like that. What I've seen actually very commonly is they have one sizing chart for all type of products, but the sizing chart for already the sizing chart within the t-shirt category, it really depends on the type of t-shirts. I've seen it for so many brands that I bought in the past. Maybe there's like the summer collection where the t-shirt is more like shrinked and more tight to your body versus the evergreen collection. So this is like another very common problem, right? Having one sizing chart for all across all products, or even just one category of products, even if the type of products are different. Yeah, the last three are one sizing chart for male, female, or even baby, which is like, I mean, seriously, like that's kind of like probably the lowest hanging fruit, let's call it. I don't like the name low hanging fruit, but in this case, if you're selling for women, men, and babies, I mean, man, you gotta have different sizing chart there. Yeah, the last two are size, like small, medium, and large, don't really help people understand what size they are, right? Exactly for the reason you said earlier. I might be small for brand A, but maybe I'm medium for brand B. So that doesn't make the cut, doesn't help me. And then finally, this is like super super common. I can't believe uh people don't even think about that. It's like inches is a measurement unit of measurement that obviously in the US is like super super popular, but in Europe, maybe like UK excluded, but in Europe people don't even know what inches are, right? So if I go on a US site, because maybe they don't sell in Europe, for example, and or even they do sell in Europe, but they're keeping these inches as a measurement of sizing. I don't know what to. I mean, I would have to go on Google and use like the converter, the measurement converter, like from inches to centimeters, which is like a super painful experience. Any thought about these problems, Rishi?
No, I think these are all great suggestions. I think you've covered everything. I'm amazed.
Yeah. The next thing is I I don't want to recommend people to say, oh, you for sure have these problems. I just talked about the most common ones. So if I were, running a CRO program for any fashion or clothing brand, actually posted about this quite recently. I would spend a lot of time, maybe like 6 months, up to 6 months, trying to figure out the sizing issues, right? And first of all, I would go deep into understanding more about the problem, because as we saw earlier, there's a lot of different problems that e-commerce companies might have when it comes to sizing. So I put together here kind of like a list of different research methodologies that I would use in order to figure out what kind of sizing problem your e-commerce has. So I broken down into two different buckets: high priority and then lower priority. So if you don't have time, which is probably like 99.99% of the people, I would just focus on at least the top two or three. And these are, I would actually run user testing on the product page, or actually on the entire site, and I would just watch people see how they use the sizing chart or whatever widget and fit app they use. Then I would run on-site exit polls again with a specific question relating to the sizing chart. Oftentimes we, from the CRO community uses exit polls to understand why people are not buying. But in this case, I would just ask specifically a question around sizing. The next one, and again, maybe I'm not planning to go through all of them. I can make this document public in the notes. But the third one, I would actually try to figure out actually focus on is I would interview customers who have returned products in the past, just to understand more about their experience about sizing, what they've tried, how they went about trying to figure out what the right size was, kind of like their experience about sizing, because they're going to tell you a lot of very interesting stories that other methodologies won't reveal and won't tell you. There's a lot more. Maybe I'll talk about the fourth one because I know you're a fan of this as well. So what you could have is, so if you think about, Rishi, you and I spoke about this before, the classic feedback widget, right, that we have seen, like, for example, Hotjar has it, or Usabilla has one as well. They're asking a feedback about the entire user experience, right, the entire page. But what I'm suggesting here is to actually set up a feedback widget, and you can do that with, like, a link nair table, or the beacon, the feedback beacon that I know you're a big fan of, about that specific thing around sizing. So literally asking for feedback to people around that sizing chart would be super, super helpful. And there's a lot of other more. I just don't want to cover it all.
You can
Any
also,
thoughts?
another idea would be that, if you are using a session recording tool, you can set up a trigger for people that have clicked on the size chart button. So you're filtering all the recordings that just deal with size chart. So you're not like, so you can actually really zero in on that experience.
Look at you talking about research tools.
Well, we've
Wow.
we've just started using it for our A/B testing as well, because so now I'm more educated about it.
Wow, I'm turning you, Rishi.
That's right. That's right.
You're going towards the devil side.
I'm a fan of user research. I just like to start quickly, iterate, and then once we've made money, then we can invest in user research.
I know. I'm just messing with you.
I know.
Cool. So yeah, I prepare some examples. One thing I want to mention before I share some examples is, like, my suggestion is not to go ahead and copy these guys, because again, you don't know if these guys are having the same problems that you have. But I've done a lot of, like, I have my own swipe file that I keep for a bunch of, like, interesting concepts that I come across, during my day-to-day work. And so what I've done here, I listed down a few examples. So the first one is from Fabletics, which is very popular gym and sports brand in the US, right?
Yep.
Yeah. And they have this section where they actually put the name of the person, and they showcase how tall the person is, and then just below that there's a drop down, and when clicking on the drop down, you can actually select other models. Yeah, other models with different size and kind of like body size as well. So for example, the next one is Jared, and as you can see, it's like a little bit like a shorter guy. One thing that I thought it was interesting is that there's no mention about the body size, because I could be shorter, but maybe I like super jacked because I go to the gym 3 times a day, right? Well, the t-shirt is not going to fit me compared to maybe like a super skinny guy that is as tall as me, but is barely eating.
Yeah, and this also shows how it'll look good, how good it'll look for your size. Because part of it is what we're trying to do is help them visualize themselves wearing it. So I think it's a pretty useful. If I see a super tall guy and I'm 5'5", it's difficult for me to imagine how it'll look on me. from a looks perspective.
Totally. And then the last one is, the other model with different body size, but same height. Cool. The next one I also thought it was very interesting is a fashion brand called Good American. And what I thought it was very interesting, here we are on a category page. You can go visit the site yourself. But here we're on a category page, and they have this sticky, this pops up only when clicking on this, but they have this sticky floating widget that says model size 0. And then what happens is that when clicking on it, they show three different models with different type of sizes. And then, when clicking on each one of them, what they do at the category level, they filter by that size based on a visual way of the size of the person, right?
Yeah.
Which I thought it was very clever. I've never seen something like that on a category page. Very, very interesting. And then they have it as well on a product page where you can see images of different women based on their size. So you can click and see how this is like size 0, and then below you have size 16, and you can see that the visual and the image of the model changes.
Yeah,
But it
maybe
was
if you
very,
can access the live website, you can just show. Is there a way for you to, because you have the category link, right? Let's
yeah.
see if we can. If not, that's fine.
Um,
Just one click, just one visual.
Yeah. So when I scroll down, there you
Oh,
go.
yeah.
This is where the
Oh,
floating
yeah,
widget.
that's cool. Yeah.
Then clicking on it, you can actually choose. Let's say I'm size 16. And you can see the images now, and the products actually, not the images. Well, both
Very
change
cool.
based. Yeah, very cool. And then when I go on the PDP, they have the same thing here. Model size 16, and you can pick and choose and
That's great.
the image.
Yeah.
Which I thought was very interesting. Exactly for the same reason you said earlier. Like the user needs to visualize himself or herself using the product. The next one is not a size chart example, but I put some clever examples of actually quiz that brands use to help the user figure out what size they are. And the first one I'm showing you is actually from Zappos, super popular clothing and apparel brand owned by Amazon in the US. So first of all, the cool thing about this is that as soon as you land on any product page, there's this nudge, kind of like pop-up that appears, which is like right in your face, right? Because it kind of like covers the image of the shoes. So it's right there in front of you. And obviously what they're trying to do here, they're trying to push you
They know where
to
the friction is. Yeah.
Exactly. And then when clicking on either size calculator here or calculate your size, which I thought it was interesting that they have it in two different places, to kind of increase the number of times that people use it. When clicking on it, it literally there's like a pop-up that starts asking a few questions. The user can literally just type in whatever brand of shoes they it fits well on them, and what size they are. And then finally, I didn't put it here as a screenshot, but what happens is that when you click on continue, they actually give you the recommended size based on the data that you input, which I thought it was interesting. The next ones I'll show you, which I'll show you in a second, are a little bit more complete. This is more like an MVP of a quiz, because like 2-3 questions is not going to be enough to help me choose the right size. So the next one is a brand that you and I reviewed, and we did an analysis for one of our episodes, and it's Third Love, which is a bra brand, and they actually take you out of the PDP, and they built a fitting room, aka size fitting calculator funnel, where they literally ask you like a bunch of questions. I'm not sure how many they are, but they go super deep into the type of questions that they ask. I rated this one. I thought it was very interesting. What brings you here today? And the options are, I thought they were clever. Like, bra have let me down literally, right? Like, and this speaks to like the customer journey, right? And how they might have landed on that page, having gone through a lot of other bras in the past that never fit them, or they hurt them, or they felt it was too tight, or many other issue. So
Right.
I thought it was like an interesting question to
Yeah, it's
ask.
very conversational, right? So I like it.
Very conversational, yeah. And then they have a bunch of other questions which are again related to what they like, their needs. So for example, what brand is your go-to bra? So kind of like trying to again leverage what they've tried in the past to give the right recommendation. The next question, I thought it was very interesting, which is more around the way they currently like using the bra. Obviously, you and I are not bra experts, but I thought it was kind of like interesting that they're asking that type of question. That's pretty much all the examples I got for you today.
All right, very cool. I'm gonna share my screen and let me get to my notes. Um, a lot of the ideas that I have will kind of mirror some of the things that you've pointed out. So this one I think is very clever. I think it's really, so I'm really focused on less on the UI and more of the buyer psychology. So someone comes to the size chart. There are two things that they've done that I think is very good. Number one is that they know that there's anxiety that's triggering the size chart. So right away they're saying, hey, and they're making it visual. If it's not a good fit, send it back. But notice this over here, still need help, speak with the fit expert. When I clicked on this, what happens? It actually activates the chat conversation right here itself. And I think this is really good as well. So I thought this was a really good example. I want to make note of that. This is kind of similar to what you were talking about, where you can kind of switch the model. So if you're a plus size nurse or a small size nurse, you can actually see the shift. I thought that was pretty good. I want to show you some more examples as well. I just have, oops. So over here, when I go to the size chart, so what they've done over here, first of all, as you kind of mouse over these elements, it's actually showing you. Can you hear me?
Can you make it bigger, like more zoomed in?
So the basic, oops. No, it's thinking it's mobile every time I do that.
Okay.
The basic idea is that the point to keep in mind over here is that as I mouse over it, it's actually showing me in the image itself what measurement they're talking about. And I think that's very useful. And so I just thought this was very well done. And then they also have a virtual fitting room. So here I just mentioned my height. I'll mention my weight. And then I'll mention my age, 44. And then when I get next. So I thought this was really well done because it's actually a 3D image, and I can also do it by skin tone. And obviously this is they're using a third-party tool. But I just think that the more you can make me see my own naked self, the more confidence I'll have that this item is going to fit me. And then so all of these details. So I just think it's well done. So you can even create a new, okay. Anyway, so that was one example. So this one's also nice, and I think this is like a fun to use widget. Let me get to it. So what I did, like, what if you can you see the screen? So here so I've actually already filled this out, but let's say that I came here. So you notice just the UI of it. I think it's kind of different, and I thought that was kind of very nicely done, because the better the UI is, the more they'll, normal size charts are like a screenshot of all these different sizes. Here they're kind of going through one element at a time, and I just think that just the way they've designed it, I just think it looks good.
I wonder if people are having any usability issue with the way this in app or in chat window experience. Just because I've seen you posting about this in the notes. I actually took a look at your ideas before the show, and I didn't know how to move them very much.
Sure. No, and these are all relevant points. I mean, I think they're all using, like, this one is also like a a third-party tool that they're using. So, I don't know those details, but there are a couple of thoughts that I have over here as well. Usability thoughts. So again, I'm not going to go to the size chart. This is just general comment. You'll notice that a lot of size chart, they try to cram a lot of information and the font size is really tiny. And I think that that's just a bad idea. So there's a lot they've done. There's a lot of wasted space in this. And I think they should have just had bigger font sizes. And I think this is a real problem. This one was also a really good idea. Sorry?
Interesting.
Yeah, so this one, I thought it did a nice job visually, kind of like showing what the areas are. So if you're a medium, you're kind of looking at these areas. If you're large, you're looking at this color. I'm not, it's just interesting. I'm just sharing this as something interesting. We'll give all these references. I'm not saying it's good or bad, depending on what kind of product you're selling and your aesthetic style. I just think that almost 90% of size charts are exactly the same. So I'm looking for examples where a brand is trying something different. So we can kind of show all of these things that we found. I'm not saying that this is right or wrong or whatever it is, but it does make it a little easy to scan visually. So this one I really like from a measurement perspective, from an assurance perspective. I'm always thinking about size charts from a confidence perspective. So it's, it first of all directly empathizes with the buyer. It says all body types are different. With free shipping, you can return it. It's risk-free. This just automatically makes me feel like, they understand my anxiety about getting the wrong size.
Actually, Rishi, go back to the previous one. That sentence, all body types are different. If you're not bringing this up, if you didn't bring this up today, I would have thought that you wrote that sentence.
Well, well, it is kind of like the way I would communicate as well. So yeah, good point. So I want to also give examples of things not to do, because I've actually seen this a lot. This literally are image blocks. Do not use image blocks because it just starts pixelating depending on sizes. Don't do that. So please don't do image blocks. And then the final thing I'll say is that a lot of sizing charts that I've seen use light colors, and it's very difficult to read. Like, use black. Don't try to be creative. Sizing chart is a functional thing, right? Don't show me your brand. I'm not interested in your brand at this point. I just want to be able to read this information. So that's it. Those are my observations. We will include these notes with the thing, but I thought some of them were like really clever, and I wanted to just capture those examples. And in comments, if you want clarification or anything, let us know, and we'll provide more context.
Yeah, and honestly, there's a lot of other content around sizing that we're thinking about creating.
Right.
We're thinking about creating like episode 2 around sizing chart. Please, if you're interested in this, leave us a comment,
Or
give us
likes.
a like. Yeah, likes, comments. Again, I had to cut a lot of stuff in the stuff that I showed today, just because I didn't want to make it too long. So if you want more, just comment and give us some likes, and we'll record episode 2.
And I think that, and the one last point I'll make is that, from a strategic perspective, if you're a consultant or if you're in-house and you're trying to you recognize that, look, our sizing interface needs a lot of improvement, the first thing you need to do is you need to build evidence that it's a point of friction. So what I would recommend is that either you can do surveys, but I think the best thing to do is to actually send emails to customers and ask them, like maybe it's a poll or whatever it is. It doesn't matter what the mechanism is. But the reason I'm saying this is because if you get evidence from actual potential buyers, these are dollars that were not spent on the website, and you go to your CEO and say, look, here is 35% of people are saying they didn't buy because of sizing chart. That means they clicked on our ad, they used up our ad inventory, they came to the website, they spent time on the website, they gave us all the signals of being motivated, but didn't buy. That'll give the management a lot of motivation to say, okay, let's do a project to fix it. So you want to first elevate the problem and then start working on fixing it.
Yeah, it's like a persuasion tool, right?
That's right. Exactly right. So anyway, good luck, guys. We will talk to you with another episode next week. And like we said, it's really important for us to be able to grow this channel. So if you write a comment, it'll give us context on, if you want more information on sizing, and we'll love to do another episode. Take care.